r/ask Reddit. Married people of Reddit, what's one thing you didn't learn about your spouse until after your wedding day? Click on the link below for a book you won't regret reading it. She makes PB&J sandwiches by mixing the PB&J in a separate bowl before spreading it on the bread. Pure savagery. He absolutely cannot be trusted with desserts in the house. Back when we were engaged, he'd give me time to eat my half of the ice cream or Oreo package or whatever we had on hand. Now? I'm sitting here eating Thin Mints from a stash from under frozen veggies in our outside freezer. A friend of mine eventually told his now wife that he didn't actually know French. He had been teaching her gibberish phrases. She farts. She had always farted around me. No big deal. Usually she kept it to little toots unless she was sick or drunk, then it would be loud like mine. I don't mind its nature. But holy moly, she unleashed an ass trumpet that would put college marching bands to shame. She can be across the house and I can hear her ass. My wife sounds like an 18-wheeler engine breaking down a mountain road. My petite little Jake break. My first fart in front of my man was while I was asleep, which violently startled me awake. Once the seismic shock wore off and I came to realize he was laying beside me on his back facing away. I very quietly whispered, "Babe," hoping he was asleep. He slowly turned his head to face me with huge eyes and said, "I heard that flashbang that came from your ass." And yes, he is a cop. My husband loves telling this story. He is a big meat and potatoes guy. On our honeymoon, I told him that I was becoming vegetarian. It was something I'd been thinking about for a while and couldn't implement well while living with my parents. When we got back from vacation, we fell into a routine where I did all the cooking. Turns out that he is lazier about cooking than he likes eating meat. Also, it turns out I'm a pretty good vegetarian cook. He now eats vegetarian whenever we are at home, and gets meat at restaurants when he goes out with his friends. He's totally happy with it, truly. It has been 10 years. He's the best. If I had someone cooking for me every meal, I'd eat that, simple as that. This sounds like a great compromise. I love steak and I hate to cook. If I married a guy who was a fantastic vegetarian cook, it'd totally be worth the trade-off to me to not have to make dinner and only have steak once in a while when we're out. My wife informed me that she could not have children after we got married. This made me sad. Being able to prove her wrong made me happy. I'm glad. It sounds like this story has a happy ending, but it is super messed up that your wife didn't tell you that till after the wedding. Right? How is that not a major thing to talk about with a person before you attach your life to theirs? She procrastinates cleaning until the task becomes unnecessarily difficult, which means she takes forever to clean, which means she hates cleaning, which makes her procrastinate. She also talks in her sleep, and that can be pretty funny sometimes. If my pants have 2 holes in them, why are 3 parts of me tired? She changed a whole lot after the wedding. From wanting kids to not, from hating her parents and the way they treated other people to siding with them. Her mom was a nurse who constantly talked about patients negatively, and her dad was an entitled business owner who tried to run people off the road constantly. Awful road rage. They both were the type of Christians that give the whole religion a bad name. She ended up remarrying one of my old college buddies shortly after the divorce. OMG, my GF's parents are those types. Negative remarks about others and religious. The type that trash talk someone about what they wore to church. I'm happily divorced now, almost 12 years now that I do the math, but after we got married I learned that she viewed her money as her money and my money as our money. Which was interesting because before we got married my money was our money and she didn't have money to speak of. Not that I was even making good money. But after we got married she got a well-paying job and suddenly her money was hers and mine wasn't mine. It didn't last long after that. I learned just today that that's sort of how my dad and his ex, my little bro's mom, wound up separating. She would use up all her money to buy knickknacks and nostalgic toys and, as seen on TV, tools, everything and anything she doesn't even use, and then use his money to buy more shit without telling him. I go over to her house every now and again and I've noticed she definitely hoards, but now I know how bad it has been. My husband doesn't like the smell of old books. I grew up loving old libraries and old books. He can't stand them. It was a gradual realization, not a dramatic reveal. Also, and much bigger, is that he has no conflict resolution skills. 20 years of marriage and we've never actually resolved an argument. We just wait until I quit being mad long enough to have lots of sex and we're good until the next argument. The times we've tried to work through things always made it worse. At least we still have great sex. You should both read the book called Nonviolent Communication. It's old but frickin' excellent and will teach you both everything. We waited 10 years before we tied the knot. October 1st of this year. I learned that she is even more beautiful than I thought. I still can't believe how lucky I am. Most of her family used to hate me and her mom even asked her why she settled for me when we were dating. Due to people treating me like that my whole life I had some really bad depression and anxiety issues. That is, until I met her. Just like a movie, it was love at first sight. We still waited before officially dating, but we were both head over heels in love. She peeled back my emotional armor as easy as pulling the curtains and read me like a book. She says I'm the most wholesome person she has ever met and that's why she loves me. At the same time, she is the most genuine person I have ever met and that's why I love her. We've been madly in love with each other since the beginning, and after we got married the most amazing thing happened. Absolutely nothing. We have not changed at all. We both still look at each other the same way and oogle and flirt with each other like we are a couple of teenagers we're in our 30s. We've always heard that things change when you get married and it's not for the better. They were so wrong. It all depends on how much effort you put into the relationship. I guarantee you that we will be that old couple wearing the same ugly shirt and holding hands that you sometimes see in the mall. I can only hope that you all find what we have. I'm rooting for you. Be patient, be honest, be forgiving. He likes to eat fish. Somehow in our 6 years of dating, I got it into my head that he didn't like to eat seafood. My parents would cook dinner and invite him, and I'd constantly tell my mom, "No, can you make something else? He doesn't eat fish." My husband loves most seafood, with the singular, random exception of coconut shrimp. We joke about that to this day, that I unintentionally kept him from some of his favorite foods without so much as a conversation about it. That's a light-hearted answer. I'm sure there are many more. 11 years in and we are still learning things about one another. My husband and I were married for over 6 years before we realized that we had been buying no pulp OJ because we both thought the other hated pulp. First wife married at 19, her 21 and Catholic. 50 years ago. Things were different then, no sex before marriage etc., though we did fool around a little. After wedding discovered she had vaginismus, so PIV was a no-go and she point blank refused to see the doctor about it. B, she didn't like to do oral or anal, so I was shit out of luck. C, she was such a deep sleeper she would, like twice a week, piss the bed. Stood that shit for 11 years before I walked out. Just found out she died from cancer last week. I could have been there for her, even now, if only she'd been honest before we married. Just how incredibly emotionally damaged he was. I knew to a point but truly underestimated just the utter depth and how consequential it would be to my life. The positive spin fortunately, came into the marriage pretty well put together psychologically. I give thanks to my deceased father who was a psychiatrist for that. After about 17 years of a lot of pain, suffering and chaos between the two of us, I can honestly say the last few years have been awesome and neither of us could be any happier. Sometimes it pays not to give up. That she does not really like physical contact in the form of playing around. I am very touchy in a physical way but not grabby like emotionally. Basically I like to poke and grab and be silly, but that doesn't jive with the wife. The bigger problem I guess is that this is how I express my like or love for someone. All my other kids love it. I feel like I cannot be myself, or that if I am truly myself, which is just stupid and goofy, then she gets angry and I am left feeling like the one thing I thought was good between us is actually a bad thing for her. Disappointing and makes me feel lonely. I'm just like your wife, I hate being touched, especially playfully, out of the blue. As a kid, I was grabbed and rough-housed by my siblings and squeezed a lot by my mom even though I often asked them not to. They never respected my personal space and I had very little privacy. Think it manifested as personal space issues? I think the key for me is that it's uninvited touching that bothers me. It's difficult on my husband as well. Have you talked to her? Maybe you're being a bit too rough, or maybe it's rooted in something from her past? Maybe there are trust issues at play. Something unresolved between you two that she's reacting to? It could simply be that you two just have different love languages. Hope you two communicate and work it out. Good luck. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you are single like me, hope you find an awesome partner.